May 3rd, 1947. Hamel Prison in occupied Germany. An elderly woman walks toward the gallows. She is 60 years old, the oldest female Nazi war criminal to be executed by the Allies. Her name is Elisabeth Marshall. She was a nurse. For over 3 years, she worked at Ravensbrück concentration camp, where she used her medical training to inflict suffering rather than relieve it. Now, British executioner Albert Pierrepoint is about to hang her for crimes against humanity. But her journey to this moment began long before the war ended. It began in a hospital training room, where she learned to heal, and then chose instead to harm. How does a medical professional, someone trained to preserve life, become an instrument of death? Elisabeth Marshall's story forces us to confront the reality that education, status, and professional training do not prevent participation in atrocity. In fact, her medical expertise made her more dangerous to the prisoners she was meant to care for. Elisabeth Marshall was born on May 27, 1886, in Meiningen, Germany. She came from a professional family. Unlike many women of her generation, she pursued a career in nursing. She received formal nursing education and passed the state exam in 1910. She was 30 years old. She had a respectable profession. She was educated. She had achieved what many women of her time could not. By all outward appearances, she was someone who had built a life devoted to caring for the sick and suffering. There is no evidence of early ideological fervor. There is no hint of cruelty in her youth. She was an ordinary nurse in an ordinary life. In 1931, Elisabeth Marshall joined the Nazi Party. She was 45 years old. She later explained her decision by saying that she believed Hitler could save Germany from its misery. Germany was in economic chaos, that the Great Depression had devastated the economy. Many Germans felt humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles. The Nazi Party promised order, stability, and national restoration. For Marshall, these promises were apparently compelling. She became a party member. She held her nursing position. By 1943, the Nazi regime needed medical personnel for its concentration camps. Marshall was recruited to work at Ravensbrück. Whether she volunteered or was assigned remains unclear in the historical record. But on April 1943, she arrived at Ravensbrück as the Oberschwester, the head nurse. Ravensbrück was the largest women's concentration camp in the Nazi system. By 1943, it was a vast complex of barracks, medical facilities, and killing facilities. It held tens of thousands of women, political prisoners, resistance fighters, Roma, Jews, and Jehovah's Witnesses. The death rate was catastrophic. As head nurse, Marshall had authority over the camp's medical operations. This meant she controlled access to medical care. It also meant she was present for selections, the process by which prisoners were divided into those who would live and those who would die. According to court records and survivor testimony, Marshall participated in selections for the gas chambers. She participated in medical experiments on prisoners. She assisted doctors Adolf Winkelmann and Percival Trite in subjecting women to surgical procedures without anesthesia, without consent, and with no medical purpose. After the experiments, Marshall was responsible for post-operative care. But this care was minimal or non-existent. Survivors testified that she deliberately withheld Red Cross food parcels from sick inmates. One French prisoner nurse testified that she saw Marshall prevent her from helping dying women. A Norwegian survivor recalled that Marshall's decisions were motivated not by medical necessity, but by a desire to exercise cruelty. She selected approximately 800 prisoners to be shipped to Auschwitz, a death sentence. By 1945, Nazi Germany was collapsing. Soviet forces advanced from the east. American and British forces closed from the west. The Third Reich was dying. Ravensbrück was evacuated. Marshall fled with the retreating Germans. The authority she had wielded was evaporating. The system was dead. She sought to disappear into the chaos of defeat. Elisabeth Marshall was arrested by British occupation forces. She was taken into custody to await trial. She was transferred to Hamburg for the Ravensbrück trials. There she faced testimony from survivors. There she faced evidence of her crimes. There she would hear detailed accounts of her decisions, her actions, and the suffering she had caused. The Hamburg-Ravensbrück trials were conducted by British military authorities between December 1946 and February 1947. Elisabeth Marshall was one of 11 defendants. 11 were sentenced to death. 5 of them were women. The prosecution presented evidence of Marshall's crimes. Survivor after survivor testified. They described her selections for death. They described her participation in medical experiments. They described her withholding of food and medicine. They described her deliberate cruelty. Marshall was found guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity. She was sentenced to death by hanging. On May 3, 1947, Elisabeth Marshall was hanged at Hamel Prison. She was 60 years old. She had worked as a concentration camp nurse for approximately 2 years. In those 2 years, she used her medical expertise not to heal but to harm. She made decisions that condemned hundreds to death. She participated in experiments that tortured women. She withheld care from the dying. And then, 2 years after the war ended, British executioner Albert Pierrepoint ended her life. She became the oldest female Nazi to be executed. Elisabeth Marshall was one of approximately 100 female guards who served in Nazi concentration camps. She was one of a handful of Nazi perpetrators who actually faced justice. Her story raises crucial questions about the role of medical professionals in genocide. Doctors and nurses took an oath to do no harm, yet some violated that oath completely. They used their medical training as a tool for torture. They used their authority to select who would live and die. Marshall stands in history as a warning about how institutions can be corrupted. Her nursing degree did not prevent her from participating in atrocity. Her age, she was 57 when she arrived at Ravensbrück, did not prevent her from learning to inflict suffering. She represents a troubling historical reality, that the Holocaust was not carried out by monsters, but by ordinary people in ordinary professions who made extraordinary choices to participate in evil. The fact that she was executed represents one of the rare instances when the international community held perpetrators accountable. But for every perpetrator who faced justice, dozens escaped. For every Elisabeth Marshall who hung from a gallows, thousands went unpunished. Her execution was an exception, not a rule. Yet it established a principle, that professional status is no defense, that age is no defense, and that choosing to participate in genocide has consequences.